Well, this Saturday's action was a lot more fun for Clemson fans. The Tigers win 66-20 over App State. We'll talk about that. Before we dive into that in too much detail, let's go through a full breakdown of the ACC power rankings. We'll spend more time on Clemson. So let's just dive right in. If you're watching this live, I've got the comments up, so feel free to leave your comments. They might get displayed during the show. All right. So at the bottom of the conference, one new bottom trio here, but Stanford, they beat Cal Poly, and that's great. But I don't have a whole lot of, I'm not going to give you a whole lot of credit for beating Cal Poly. I think they've got a tough stretch upcoming where they might lose quite a few games in a row. So for now, I'm going to keep them 17. If they could win a more substantial game, they'll certainly scoot up. Wake Forest blew a 30-17 lead over Virginia at home. That's pretty ugly, and that's going to drop you down. It wasn't too long ago that Wake Forest was a really plucky team that even one year came into Clemson ranked and had people worried. It's a far cry from that. I don't know if it's something with the NIL or the transfer portal, but they seem to have fallen off, and that's a program that's hard to unfall off, right? Like when they're down, they could be down for a while. So that's something to be concerned about, I think, if you're a Demon Deacon fan. And then Virginia Tech, they beat Marshall this weekend, but you're not going to move them up too much for that after they lost to Vanderbilt in week one. And they actually were not leading by much at halftime over Marshall. Virginia Tech was a team I was really high on coming into the year. I think I was wrong about that. We'll see. That's definitely a program, out of the ACC programs that I think is good for the conference when they're good. And personally, I tend to like them more than a lot of the other schools in the conference. But the way it looks now, if I'm being objective, I've got them in the bottom three. Duke scored a big win. I had them at 17. They move out of that bottom three. Same with Duke, same with Virginia. They move out of the bottom three. Duke went on the road and beat Northwestern. That's not, the most impressive win in the world, but they did beat a Power 4 opponent, a Super 2 opponent even though it was Northwestern. But they go to Illinois, pick up the win, double overtime. Malik Murphy was really good. They won in double overtime. So credit to them. Maybe they're not quite as bad as I thought. I still have my doubts, to be honest. And kind of same goes for Virginia. Kind of have doubts about this entire group. I think they could still all be really bad, but really, hopeful now that Virginia can start pulling something together. They get Maryland at home next weekend. And I know they're excited about it. They're starting to believe. So if they could pull off that win against Maryland, a Maryland team that just lost to Michigan State, mind you, they're rolling. So they're a team, I think, to watch. They could sort of bust out of this kind of grouping here at the bottom. Would certainly be happy for Tony Elliott. Maybe they come into Clemson with a decent record and a game that's not a total snooze. So happy for Tony Elliott to see them get the win. I do think Anthony Calandria, going with him, a little bit more downside, but they need the upside. And so far, it's worked out for them. Then you got three teams who we had much higher. All of them lost. Well, all of them are riding losing streaks, I guess you could say. Florida State had the week off. But SMU, they lost to BYU. They had I don't know if you call it a quarterback controversy, but both of their quarterbacks, Stone and Jennings, are both team captains. They were sharing snaps. They went with Stone for 2 series. They went with Jennings for 2 series. They went back to Stone. And after those 5 series, the offensive line for SMU was just getting manhandled. They couldn't stop BYU. They were pretty much forced to use Jennings because he could avoid the sacks because he's so nimble and fast, but he's not that accurate. And so they were able to move the ball, but when things got in the red zone, they got gummed up. They settled for 5 field goals, ended up with 15 points. That wasn't enough. His inaccuracy really showed at the very end of the game when they were in a real passing situation, and he was just missing passes. So I don't know what they do moving forward. I think in the ACC, when they get into ACC play, they're going to be hard pressed to be like an 8-4 team. I think it's going to be a bit of a transition for them. I don't think they're bad per se, but they're a team from a lower level transitioning to a bigger conference. Florida State did not lose this weekend, but they're 0-2, and one of the teams they beat, or one of the teams that beat them, Georgia Tech, went to Syracuse and lost. So their 2 losses are looking like they're more of a reflection on Florida State than anything else. I think Florida State might be bad. And I heard it on the Cover 3 podcast, but man, if they had Syracuse's quarterback, they might be in a much better spot right now. They obviously got DJ Uyunglele, but Kyle McCord, who Syracuse got from the transfer portal from Ohio State, is looking awfully good. I wonder, did Florida State have a shot there? I know that McCord had some like local connections growing up in that area, but nonetheless, for Florida State to land the QB and just the passing game in general with the wide receivers that they have has to be really disappointing. Moving up, North Carolina beat Charlotte. They have that win over Minnesota, and so that kind of puts them above some of these other teams. And then Pittsburgh got a big win this weekend. They went to Cincinnati. They were trailing. Things were not looking so good, but they had the ball. They started making a run. Then they got the ball. It was third and medium, and there was a delay of game on the defense. Really, a disconcerting signals where they sort of faked a snap, tried to get the offense to jump. Officials are focused on that this year. That gave them a penalty. That gave Pittsburgh a first down, and they used that opportunity to go right down the field and kick the game-winning field goal. So huge win for them. Before I get to the top couple, just want to share this live listener's his guess or his thoughts. Miami 1, Louisville 2, Clemson 3, Boston College 4, and he'd have UNC all the way up at 5. Let's go ahead and move on up and see where we land on these top couple. NC State, they took a loss to Tennessee. I don't think that's super surprising, but they looked bad doing it. Again, I didn't think that was too shocking. I thought Tennessee would throw all of them, but now that it's official, NC State is through 2 games. 1, they struggled with Western Carolina, and 2, they got destroyed in Charlotte by Tennessee. I just don't think they're that good. Grayson McCall, this is the second year in a row they went and brought in a guy who's had a lot of success. They had Brennan Armstrong, and he had a ton of success at Virginia with Robert and I. And then he had a bad year at Virginia, and then he came and had another bad year for NC State. Grayson McCall had several great years at Coastal Carolina, which is obviously a level down, then had an injury-plagued or a down year, and now he's leveled up to the ACC, and it just doesn't look like he has maybe the arm or the accuracy. It was a competitive game at the very beginning until he threw a pick 6, and that sort of ended things, and Tennessee pulled away very quickly at that point. Okay, getting into the top couple now. Cal with a really surprising win. They go to Auburn and just shut down the Auburn offense. 4 picks for Peyton Thorne. Man, I don't know if Cal's good or Auburn's bad. I'm sure it's a little bit of both. But that Cal defense is pretty good, and that's a better win than really anyone below them has. So they certainly deserve to be where they're at here at 6. Again, I don't know that Auburn's very good, but to go into that hostile environment and shut down that offense says a lot. Maybe Cal, out of all the new teams, surprisingly, maybe they're the one that actually could be in the upper half of this conference. Boston College, they only played Duquesne, beat them by more than 50. Not gonna make a big deal out of beating Duquesne, but they ran the ball well. Thomas Castellanos looked awesome again. They've got that win against Florida State. Got that new coach in Bill O'Brien. Maybe this offensive line, maybe they can run the ball. They've got a quarterback that has tons of upside, certainly electric, and Thomas Castellanos. Maybe they're pretty good. Definitely agree here with Kevin saying Cal over Auburn was a shocker. I didn't even kind of consider that as a possibility. And again, Auburn's probably a lot worse than I expected, but Cal is definitely much better than I expected. Totally surprising there. And then Syracuse, man, I didn't really think they would hold serve at home. I figured that Georgia Tech was looking pretty good after that win against Florida State and then a win against Georgia State. But they had no answer for the new quarterback there, Kyle McCord. He threw for 381 yards and 4 touchdowns. I asked a friend of mine, I live in Atlanta, I reached out to a friend. I was like, man, what happened in Syracuse? And he said, I didn't know they had Tom Brady for quarterback. So, man, Syracuse has found something. Fran Brown goes out, gets Kyle McCord. Big deal. You bring him in from Ohio State. That's how they keep Aronda Gadsden. That's how they start getting momentum. Maybe they're one of the better teams in this conference. I certainly did not see that coming into the year. Obviously very early, but they're probably one of the early teams you got to think maybe that's a surprise team. Them, Boston College, Cal, some of the more positive surprises. As we get into these top couple, Louisville, Number 3, they took care of business against Jacksonville State. They haven't played anyone yet. So, I'm not trying to overstate what they've done, but I feel pretty good about them moving forward. They get Georgia Tech at home, and then they go to South Bend. They'll have an open date before all that, but I could see them winning both of those. Let's pause for just a second on the ACC. Let's talk about Notre Dame. Northern Illinois comes to town. I'm glad I saw the score early. I paused the game while I was doing some other stuff, and I was able to catch the second half. And Northern Illinois looks like the better team. Notre Dame's got some offensive issues. Their offensive line's not great. They don't run the ball great. And Riley Leonard, in my head from that from the Duke loss last year that Clemson suffered, in my head he was just so great. But watching him, he's not a major downfield kind of threat. That offense looks very whatever. I was keeping an eye out for Bo Collins. He didn't catch my eye. He didn't seem to do much. Man, Notre Dame does not look good. I think Louisville could beat them in South Bend. I don't see Notre Dame making the playoff with this Northern Illinois loss. Louisville looks better than them. Southern Cal looks better than them. They could have a couple more losses. Then you get into these top 2, and I know some Clemson fans might say Clemson should be 1 after their excellent performance. Let's talk about Miami, and then we'll circle back to Clemson. So Miami, they just played Florida A&M. Solid win. They just did everything they're supposed to do. And with their win over Florida and the way they've looked in both of these, I think they clearly deserve to be 1. But Clemson's weird because I feel like Clemson played maybe their C game against Georgia. And if you play your C game against Georgia and Georgia's playing better than you, then you're going to get killed, right? But then against App State, we saw what their A game looks like. And it's easy to say that's because it's App State. I don't think it is. A lot of the deep balls that Cade was missing against Georgia, he was connecting on. They changed their wide receiver rotation, and it made a huge difference. And I really think that Clemson could be a lot better moving forward. If they play like they did in this game, I don't know that they beat Georgia, but they're a lot better. Comment here from Tiger Pride. Cam Ward is elite, and Miami's O-line is no joke. Yeah, absolutely right. Miami's O-line was good last year. They're good again this year. I think Clemson's O-line is good too, but when you have a quarterback who you really trust, and maybe Cade can in the next couple of weeks sort of get in that Cam Ward area. But right now Cam Ward looks awesome, and their offensive line looks awesome, and those are two big pieces. Then they have Xavier Estrepo at wide receiver, so they've got the pieces. They could be a team that Clemson and Miami both can make the playoffs. Yes, Ridge Runner, please hit the like button. I appreciate that. Let's transition here. Let's dive deeper into Clemson now. So Clemson obviously just totally explodes on App State, and the first 2 plays they lose -1 yards, and very, very early, obviously. But it's hard not to think, oh boy, is this going to be one of these ugly games where we gut it out and you just leave feeling just really down, especially after Georgia really scored 3 points. And frankly, 2021, 2022, and all of last year where the offense stunk. And Bryant Wesco got the start, and that feels good, but let's see it. And third play from scrimmage, 3rd and 11, I think it was 76 yards down, sort of off to the side, almost down the middle. Just a laser throw, perfectly in stride, exactly what Cade Klubnik did not do against Georgia. He hit him on the move, led him perfectly, easy touchdown, and then things were rolling. Very next drive, he hits him for a 50-plus yard completion, and really the route is on at that point. After that, now that you have a deep threat, defenses can't play you the same. Third drive, Phil Maffa, 83-yard touchdown is 21-0. The route is totally on at that point. And yes, Kevin says it here. Clemson needs to prove they can score against the good teams. And NC State will tell us a lot. NC State's defense, I'm sure, is better than App State's. But let's not pretend like App State is some FCS team. No, they were never the threat that a lot of Clemson fans like to talk them up as. A lot of Clemson fans like to say, you better watch out. They beat Michigan like 20 years ago. They took a not that great North Carolina team into overtime. Mac Brown loses ridiculous games all the time. So I didn't put a ton of stock into that. But they're an above average, a way above average Sun Belt team. They're not some FCS pushover. This isn't Charleston Southern. What Clemson did was really impressive. And I think you saw those first 2 drives, No one believes in Clemson's deep ball. Clemson proves they have it with Wesco now starting, and all of a sudden everything changes. Then Maffa they can't stop Maffa. Later on, Jay Haynes was also excellent. Of course, the bigger thing is all about the passing game, how that opens that up. Fourth drive, 41-yard touchdown pass to Jake Brenningstool. Then the next one was the touchdown pass to Antonio Williams. Really, the first mistake Cade made was on the flea flicker, he left it short, which is exactly what he was doing against Georgia. But then immediately the next play, he hits same guy, Antonio Williams, and it's a 29-yard touchdown. He was, Tiger Pride. He was dropping dimes. He looked amazing. He looked like the type of quarterback who could be one of the better ones in the conference, who could win an ACC championship. Maybe not beat Georgia per se, but maybe beat, maybe win a playoff game. That's what he looked like. And to win a playoff game, Clemson's going to have to play at this level. If they're playing, I don't know if they could even beat Texas per se, but if they're playing, let's say like a Penn State, who I know played terrible this week, but a team like that, or like an Oregon, if Clemson plays like this, then they can beat a team like that in the playoff, which I sort of felt like they had no shot of, and maybe they could just get through a weak schedule. But, we saw Clemson's upside, and it's pretty appealing. So touchdown pass to Antonio Williams, and then Klubnik had a touchdown run. Then he had TJ Moore for a 33-yard touchdown. So that's the second freshman. Now Clemson seeing both freshmen emerge, whereas against Georgia, they were heavily leaning on Adam Randall and Cole Turner. Now you're seeing electric playmakers emerge. And later on in the game, you see Randall and maybe more so Cole Turner make some big plays. And in that secondary role, that's where they can thrive, right? They can provide depth. I don't think you want them to be your alpha deep ball guy, but they're not junk players, especially not Cole Turner. Not some junk player, just not the number one deep ball threat you want if you think you can win a playoff game or make the playoff. So after that TJ Moore touchdown, it was another passing touchdown, a 17-yard touchdown to Jake Brenningstool. Klubnik finished the first half, and then the game really with 7 touchdowns, 5 through the air, 7 on the ground. Clemson scored 35 in the first quarter. They went into halftime 56-13. Klubnik started 11 for 11. He finished the game 24 for 26 with 378 and those 7 touchdowns. He was awesome, man. He was honestly just happy for him and proud of him. Like, if he could play like that, that's that 5-star billing. That's the type of, frankly, when you see like him and Grayson McCall, it's that upside about Klubnik that speaks highly to Clemson's route of getting guys with tons of talent from high school and not grabbing people through the portal. And I've complained enough about Clemson needs to get a few pieces from the portal, but trying to get elite high school talent, especially at quarterback, and then maybe you patch it when it doesn't work, but this is the upside you want. This was Clemson's A game. Now, if they played like this against Georgia, did they win? Maybe. I mean, probably not, but maybe. They certainly don't lose as bad as they did. They likely push it into the fourth quarter, and Georgia's really coming up with plays, and it's a battle, right? There's probably 4 deep balls. If Cade connects on those, totally changes the game. The interception by Starks, the game was likely over that point, but if that ball is not short, that's a touchdown pass, or at least a big-time completion. And that was not the only example. I don't, for the life of me, understand, and folks in the live chat chime in, I will probably never understand why they did not start Wesco against Georgia. That, to me, is just like in 2014 when they didn't start Deshaun Watson against Georgia, or maybe even more memorable from that year when they didn't start Watson in Tallahassee against a Jameis Winston-less Florida State team, and Clemson barely loses that game. I don't know that Clemson beats Georgia this year if Wesco starts. I'm not saying that. Georgia certainly deserved to win, but a real head-scratching decision there. Sounds like folks, Ridge Runner agrees there. Just a real head-scratching decision there to lean on, experience instead of the explosive talent you need. You really knew from last year the receiving core as it was not enough. That's why Wesco and Moore were bringing so much excitement, because we hoped they were the solution. So to not go with them in game 1 feels really silly, but you do kind of see that the fans, what they were hoping for was kind of right, because they were sort of the solution, especially Wesco. And it was really, really fun to watch. John says it here. So fun to watch. Very cathartic, really. A few other notes on that game before we wrap up. I thought App State, like, I think they're an okay team, but a blowout win over that App State team is really impressive. I was disappointed in sort of how they lost composure a couple points during the game. Two different personal foul calls. There was a nasty chop block against Peter Woods that nearly hurt him. I think he's okay. And I don't even know that was especially dirty. But just overall, I didn't think it was a good showing for App State on the field in terms of quality of play or sort of culture. I thought it was a bad look overall for them. Real subpar showing for sure. And then I look forward. I look at Clemson's schedule. Who's going to beat Clemson? I thought Florida State and Virginia Tech. We did a preview, season predictions with Will Harper of Shaking the Southland. He had Clemson losing to Georgia and Florida State. I had Clemson losing to Georgia and Virginia Tech. Picking those ACC losses looks ridiculous now. I mean, Florida State, I don't know that they could be 7+ point home dogs to Clemson in a few weeks. And then Virginia Tech, that's way off in November, but they have certainly fallen below expectations. NC State comes to Clemson after their embarrassing blowout loss to Tennessee and their struggles against Western Carolina. It's hard to be high on them. So I just maybe Louisville is Clemson's toughest test, and I think Louisville's probably pretty good, but they haven't played anyone yet. I think 11-1 is very possible for Clemson. Now Miami is really, really good. That's going to be tough. We'll see. That's a pretty long way out. Cam Ward is maybe the best quarterback in the conference. Kyle McCord certainly making his case there, but that could be the game of the year if those two teams meet up. Game of the year in the ACC if those two teams meet up in an ACC championship. Couple other thoughts. I think Wesco will certainly continue starting. I don't know how you don't start him moving forward. I think TJ Moore continues to gain playing time. And if those guys can play even close to this level that they showed in this one, and Cade can continue to hit the deep ball and not leave it short, that's going to open things up in the middle of the field and just the general intermediate passing game for Brenningstool, who went for 100 yards, for Antonio Williams, who's been great whenever he's healthy, and he was pretty good in this one. And it's also going to prevent defenses from loading up on Phil Maffa and Jay Haynes. I thought Maffa was great. I thought Jay Haynes was really good. I'm excited that he's emerged as the number 2 back. It sounded like coming out of camp, and it's really hard to read the tea leaves. Dabo says stuff that throws you off a lot of the time, but it sounded like Keith Adams Jr. was going to be like more of a short yardage blocking kind of guy, and Jay Haynes or someone else would really be the number 2. And that's what we're starting to see is that it looks like Jay Haynes is the number 2 guy. He had a phenomenal block in that Georgia game that set up really Clemson's only great offensive play, the corner route to Antonio Williams. So ever since that, I've sort of been keen on Jay Haynes, and then to see him run so well against App State, I think you got an awesome 1-2 punch. And the thing watching Florida State, I'm going to connect this, but the thing about Florida State is when Clemson had DJ Uyunglele at quarterback, teams loaded up on the run, and so you'd watch the passing game and say, hey, like, it's not that bad. Well, that's because that's what they're giving you because they don't believe you can beat them deep. So of course you look okay in the passing game. At least you should look really good when they're trying to stop the run. And that's sort of how it's been for Clemson under their club nets. They just want to stop Maffa, or last year it was Shipley, stop them. They don't believe in the deep passing game. Now that you've showed that you could do it, now you've got some compliment, right? They can't just load up on Maffa and Haynes because you'll beat them deep with Wesco and Moore. So now your defenses can't just settle in. And I think that makes Clemson's just much more dynamic. That makes Clemson tough to beat. So as we look forward, or really just kind of summarize this, it's been 4 years since Clemson's offense has looked like this. And I know it's App State. I don't want to get overly worked up about an App State win that looked really, really good, but the throws were perfect. They're perfect. If you make that throw against Georgia, it's perfect. You make that throw against App State, it's perfect. And there was like 5 or 10 of those like perfect throws. So regardless of the opponent, Cade was awesome. And then You also think about the change to the wide receiver rotation. These are different guys than played against Georgia, and kind of different guys than literally different, but also maybe different upside than what we've had since that 2020 season when they had Powell and Amari Rodgers. But since then, I don't know that we've had a Wesco or TJ Moore. So now you're seeing a quarterback connecting with them. You're seeing elite talent. I think Clemson proved that their ceiling is higher than maybe it's been the last couple of years. I still don't know that they're going to improve enough to beat a Georgia, Ohio State, or Texas and win a national championship. But after the last couple of years, that's not, that's the goal, but that's not what I need to be thrilled and happy. This team absolutely can, and I'm starting to think will run the table in the regular season, get a big matchup against Miami. Maybe they make the playoffs, certainly if they win that. And I could see them competing with a lot of the playoff teams if they play like this. We saw their A game, and it looked really, really good. So really nothing but encouragement in this one. And we'll see if they can continue that. They get the open date, they get NC State, and I'll drop a little prediction here. I think Clemson can blow out NC State. They looked bad. And if Clemson plays like this and NC State's played like they've played all year, well, 2 games, but the games they played, if that's the case, Clemson's going to blow them out. So I'm really encouraged. I hope you are too. Don't forget to like this video. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. I appreciate you watching live. If you're watching this afterwards, appreciate that too. And as always, go Tigers. If you enjoyed this video, please help this channel by liking the video, subscribing, and leaving a comment. Also, if you're a pet owner and you live in the upstate, check out our sponsor, Ready Vets. They offer immediate walk-in care when your pet can't wait. They're open 7 days a week till 10 p.m. They're owned by 2 Clemson grads. They're located in Taylor's, just 10 miles from the Woodruff Road shopping district.